Everybody joining me on the show today is Josh Neighbors. You can check him out over on Locked On Big 12, Monday through Friday, every single day. Also, some other stuff. Locked On Nationals for the baseball fans out there. Producer, Sirius XM for college sports, and also Spiders Baseball, Richmond
Mhm.
Spiders on ESPN Plus. More baseball stuff. So, Josh, you're all over the place. A lot of different titles out there, but I appreciate you coming on the show and talk some Big 12 football.
Yeah, this is the one. Well, the Nationals one's been pretty busy recently, but I would say, yeah, ever since the USC UCLA thing, like Big 12 kind of nonstop realignment scenarios. You know how this stuff goes with college football.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the difference a year makes with the Big 12. At this time last year, and I'm sure we'll get into it, they were kind of probably feeling how a lot of people in the Pac-12 feeling, oh no,
Mhm.
their conference is dead. The two big teams are left, but really, Bowlesby did a good job bringing in teams that are coming in to the conference. Yes, Oklahoma, Texas, are leaving, but they're actually in a pretty good spot. After the SEC to Big Ten stuff, they're in a pretty good position actually when you really look at it from where they were a year ago.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the difference a year makes, and I would say that like to just kind of illustrate that. I mean, I was like fearful about like, will I have a job? Because I work a lot on the Big 12 side of things.
Yeah.
During the summer months for Sirius XM, I'm all over the place. But right now, during football season and basketball season, and in the spring, I'm all big. Normally Big 12 all the time, and so I'm fearful for my job, and I'm sure a lot of people were, and I'm sure a lot of people in the Pac-12 are dealing with like that anxiety right now. So, but Big 12 media days last week, like it's like the Big 12's hunting now. Like they're the ones actually going after teams, and yeah, it might come at the expense of the Pac-12, but it is a stark contrast from where we were sitting last year.
Yeah, and with Big 12 Media Days, of course, the one thing jumped out to me was, I guess, for the Big 12 fans, they got officially, unofficially, officially, I don't know how you want to term it,
Yeah,
new commissioner, Brett
right.
Yormark. He's not officially the commissioner till the first, but he really felt like he was the commissioner watching his press conference there at Media Days. I know he made the line, I think, that's been running around, open for business. Just
Mm-hmm.
overall, actually, before that, what were your initial thoughts on the hire him? Obviously, an outside the box hire, a guy not involved in college athletics from Rock
Yeah,
Nation, been in NASCAR, like I said, not a
yeah.
college guy. So, what was your initial response reaction to him when it got announced he was going to be the new commissioner?
So obviously, like I was glad that it was not a traditional college person because that's not what the conference needs at this point. I thought the NASCAR and Rock Nation combination was really interesting, just because. So if you follow NASCAR at all, and I follow it relatively close, not as close as NASCAR's got awesome fans, but he was around when they had the deal for them to. I forget which. I'm forgetting now what it was. It was the one of the cups. It was a Cup Series sponsorship that he basically was there for. I want to say I forget if it was Sprint or not, but like that's a big deal. And then for him to go into the Rock Nation, that's now not a talent agency for both music and also for for sports as well. Um, he's got experience in that realm, and to kind of transition to like Big 12 media days. I was really happy when he made the comment that he's like, I'm not like, I'm a pretty casual fan. Like I've seen the Big 12 from afar. He was not going to sit there and lie to us and say, I'm a huge fan of the atmosphere at McLean Stadium on Saturdays, or, I love the way Allen Fieldhouse feels, a big Saturday night game or big Monday night game. Like I actually appreciate the fact that he wasn't that. And he's not there for that. He's not, eventually, sure, his job will be to sell those kinds of things. But like, his job is to find as many ways possible to make this conference better off financially. That's why he was hired. That's why they brought him in, and he knows that. And I think the people who brought him in know that. So I'm excited. I was intrigued by it, and then I'm even more excited when I heard him speak about it. I know he talked in generalities, but his honesty about his relationship to the conference previous is what most caught my ear.
Yeah, and listen to his statements and a lot of the answers to his question. He talked a lot about business and the Big 12 brand. And in your opinion, put you in that seat, guy that covers this conference.
Yeah.
What is the Big 12 brand now, and what do you think it should be going forward?
Well, part of the I mean, I think the one thing I can sell you for sure is it's the best basketball conference in the country. The last 3 years, there has been a different Big 12 team in the last three national championship games, right?
Hmm.
They have had Texas Tech, who is, I mean, just very, 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 very close to winning the title against UVA. Baylor obviously did it in pretty impressive fashion, beating what we thought was a juggernaut in Gonzaga.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out the Baylor Bears were the juggernaut that year, and they were all season. And then Kansas wins it in 2022. And I think there's a pretty good argument that in 2020, the Jayhawks probably would have been the team there to beat them,
Absolutely.
to win that season. So that's the brand currently. I think also being the most competitive conference is something that's really interesting to me. It's going to be a really competitive league. It 100% is. Now, yeah, they don't have the brands that everybody else has. I'm not going to try to sell anybody a whole bill of goods about that. But the thing is, like, it's a really competitive league, and it's got good. Like, Oklahoma State's been good forever. They've been good for a long time. Baylor, think about the last 3 or 4 coaches. Well, I know Jim Grobe kind of notwithstanding here, like Art Briles, Matt Rule, and Dave Aranda have all won at a really high level at Baylor. You can win 10, 11 games there, and you can compete for championships with Baylor. So you think about that. You think about the fact they're adding the team in Cincinnati. It's been a playoff team. And then BYU is one of the best independent brands out there because of obviously their religious affiliation. They have a national fan base. Houston's in one of the largest markets in the entire country. UCF, obviously, everybody knows about their fictional national championship and all those kind of things. But still, it's like they have like they're adding these intriguing brands on top of what is already a pretty competitive league. And I think that is something that they can sell. And also we saw today that that NBC has interest in boosting their overall TV package as Notre Dame plus the Big 12, which I think is super interesting, right? I think the idea of like Fox has the Big 10, the ESPN's got the ACC and the SEC, but really the SEC is what they care about. I think in the end of the day, I mean, they've got a great deal with the ACC, but don't get me wrong, it's an excellent deal for ESPN.
Yeah.
But I think it's really, I think it's really interesting that the NBC is like, all right, what if we did the Big 12 plus Notre Dame? And I kind of really like the idea. So like the fact that they're being considered to be in the mix for something like that shows you kind of where the league is at, because people do want to watch. People do want to watch. I mean, there's a reason why Big Monday is full of, it's Big 12 teams, right? Fox, a lot of their games, a lot of their noon games, Big 12 games. So it's not just the Big 10. So it's a product out there that people do want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the open for business comment he made, that had that wasn't just a one meaning, phrase he put out there. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, we're open for business. We'll bring on teams." And I feel like it has so many different layers, and that right there, TV contracts. I mean, that's a big thing now. I mean, and let's face it, the SEC expanding, the Big 10 expanding. Yes, it's about super conference. It's about TV contracts, TV money. And then there you go. And I really you add those 4 teams as you mentioned: Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, Houston. That's a fun conference to watch on Saturdays. Because those are teams traditionally are known for good offenses. And quarterback play. I mean, traditionally, whoever the coaches are. And who doesn't want to watch that on Saturday? I mean, the SEC, Big 10, they're going to do their thing. But those teams in the Big 12 with what you already have. And look, I'm just going to throw it out there. I want to get your thoughts. I think it will be funny if Colorado has to go back into the Big 12 after they had left. I'm sure you've talked about that, but that's also funny. Funny, Simon. If that happens, if the Pac-12
I think they need it though.
Over.
I think like culturally speaking, I guess they do more fit with like the Pac-12. I guess you could actually did a whole thing about the cultural stuff today, but like maybe what's better off for them is being in a conference that's rooted in Texas. Because and here's what I so I actually got to work on the Pac-12 channel a really decent amount the last year, and people always say that when like Colorado is good, it's like a really awesome atmosphere. And look, we know that from the Big 12 days. So I actually think them getting back to a place, where they're playing 2-3 games a year in the state of Texas, right? And be able to kind of you can resell that, right? If you're recruiting Texas and you can say, Mom and Dad, you get to come watch them 3-4 times a year in addition to, in your backyard, in addition to when you come to Denver. Also, Denver is an hour, less than an hour. It's like an hour. What is it? Whatever it is. To Boulder, like it's not that hard of it's not that hard of a sell. So maybe they belong back in the Big 12. I actually think it's going to be something that's really, really exciting. But I'll tell you, the teams I'm targeting, it's really been Oregon and Washington. Like if they could pull that off, it'd be such a coup. Those are 2 teams with such good branding and in great market. Washington's in a great market, and Oregon is obviously the Nike college football school. If they could pull that off, it'd be fantastic. But I also think part of the expansion thing too is now like the Pac-12 can't go grab any 4 of those teams. They were against BYU before, but now they definitely reconsider that. But they can't because the Big 12 has them. And so I think also it's a little bit of keep away too. The Big 12 is in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like, and if anybody's watching this as a Pac-12 fan, I'm sorry, you may hurt your feelings, but I think the Pac-12 is they're done. I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, eventually those teams are going to go somewhere else. And it was interesting his response about Oklahoma, Texas. He you couldn't take not interesting. I feel like you couldn't get a read whether he wants to, hey, I can take advantage that they're still here till 2025, or let's hurry up and get these two out of here and let's move forward. Oh, what was your read on his comments on that?
Well, so I'll tell you what's really interesting now is I think at worst the USC UCLA thing doesn't hurt the Big 12 at all. At best, it actually could help them get more money out of OU and Texas. Think about it like this: the Fox is going to have the full complement of Big 10 teams in 2024, right? Mm-hmm. Well, OU and Texas aren't set to leave until 2025. If Mickey Mouse, Disney, and ESPN wants the SEC product to be the full new 16-team SEC, maybe they have a bit more impetus to front some money to help those schools get out of there, and maybe it's a better financial deal. Because here's the thing: with them in the conference, the league distributed like $45 million, something like that, last year to all of its teams. It's really good. And the Big 12 will do good business as long as those two teams are in the league. But it might be better business to let them out early if the SEC and ESPN is so inclined to do so. So I think he's open to anything, and he's been at it. He all of his comments were, if it helps the conference, if it helps the conference, if it helps the conference. Well, if OU and Texas pay a sum of money that's going to make sure that your schools continue to eat at a pretty good rate, like take the money, right? Take the money and distribute that money. I just think it's a matter of what's the right number. But I think ESPN definitely more motivated now that it's all but a foregone conclusion. We're going to hear about this Fox deal with the Big 10.
Yeah, and I just feel like this would be the perfect week for any conference to put out a big news story if they could trump SEC media days, because the whole conference war thing, that would be a big deal. When you look at this season, 2022 season, it feels like there's three top teams here. It's Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Oklahoma. Do you see it that way with this? Is it like a 3-team race probably going into the season, or do you see maybe there's a 4th team that can jump into that conversation?
I think there are 5 teams this year that can win the Big 12. Okay. It is the 3 you listed: Texas and Kansas State. So Texas has all the talent in the world, and their offense it's the most talented offense by far in the conference. It's actually not very close. It's just a matter of I think people have been burned by Texas so many times they're afraid to pick them. And what I'll say about this year is their amount of talent this year on offense is so overwhelming that in this particular year in the Big 12, they're going to have an advantage. This is not last year's Big 12 defensively, I don't think. And the offenses actually I think this is a weird transition year. Think about Baylor's transitioning a little bit. They lost a lot of last year's team, but they should still be really good. Oklahoma State is definitely transitioning. Oklahoma is definitely transitioning.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, those are the top dogs. And so it kind of leaves everything in flux. Well, Sark's got a really good offense there. And the defense, a lot of questions there. They got a lot of guys coming back. Let's see if they get better. But I think they're involved. And then Kansas State had the most first-team selections of any school in the Big 12. They had 6. The question for them is, can Adrian Martinez – he's got to be he can't be the guy who was at Nebraska. He's got to take care of the football, man. He's really got to take care of the football. That's what the best Kansas State quarterbacks and those Skylar Thompson, not known for 300-yard passing games, 100-yard rushing games, known for taking care of the football and making really good decisions. And that's what they need this year. I mean, I feel like this would have been the perfect year to have Skylar Thompson back, for his final year. It sucks it was 1 year earlier. But can they turn Adrian Martinez into that guy? And their rushing offense is going to be awesome with him and Deuce Vaughn together. It's going to be one of the more interesting running back duos running the football that we see in all of college football.
Yeah, and if Adrian Martinez turns out to be good at Kansas State, Nebraska fans will be like, what were you doing, Scott Frost?
Yeah,
what in the world were you doing?
Right.
And with Texas, it feels like with them, it all hinges on, Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
Can he be what, he's been built up to be? And obviously a little pressure on him because who's coming in a few years, and he doesn't have his free transfer anymore. So
right.
He needs to, show what he's capable of doing. But, for you, especially offense, last year they averaged over 35 points per game, but still the quarterback position was inconsistent. Hudson Card got benched after Arkansas. Then you go to Casey Thompson. He was okay.
They played back. They were back and forth, those guys, all year long, too.
So, obviously, quarterback's always big, but just for them, it just seems like it all hinges on that for them.
Yeah, there's no excuse. The offensive line plays bad. That'll be a huge problem. It'll be noticeable. But, there's no excuse for him not to be good. Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson behind him. People don't understand how good of a back Roschon Johnson is. I'm a huge fan of his, but he would start on 7 of the 10 teams in this conference. He's just behind the best running back. Last year, the Kansas State game, go back and watch it if anybody hasn't watched it. He ran for 130 yards. Bijan didn't play. He went out and just ran for 130 yards and I think 1 or 2 touchdowns. And, he's the reason why they won that game. They got those two in the backfield. They also have Jaleel Billingsley coming over from Alabama. They also have Jai Hall coming over from Alabama. They've got Jordan Whittington back. They've got Xavier Worthy. They've got Isaiah Nair, who I think is going to be a really interesting piece for them because he's just a go down the field and get it guy, a high. He's a jump ball type guy. That's what he is. He's low reception, high output type guy. So they've got everything you want. You can throw screen passes to your wide receivers, to your running backs. You can even throw them to your tight ends. They've got it all. So my question is all right, Quinn Ewers, are you up for it? Now, my thing is this too. He could get better as the year goes along. We can't discount that, right? Maybe it doesn't look good in September and October, and maybe in November they're like a machine, but the record should be where it is. So I think that's the interesting thing to watch is what does it look like? Does he look like a guy who's just a world beater from the word go? Or I remember last year people were calling for I'm totally blanking on now Ohio State quarterback, CJ Stroud. Mm-hmm. People were calling for his head after the Minnesota game. Yep. And then there was the game where Jack Miller played earlier in the year. People wanted him to be the quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. It's guys, just sometimes you got to give it some time. Sometimes you got to give it some time. And so I'm wondering if it's one of those situations where, look, maybe you take a couple losses, but in late October, early November, they're a team that's better than whenever they're ranked, or they're not ranked at all, and it feels like they're a team that's playing really well.
That Alabama game second week could be a big. You could. No one's going to expect Texas to win that game. Everybody will expect Alabama. Which, look, I'm in Alabama. That's where I live at. All these Alabama fans fussing about having to get up early and watch an 11 o'clock kickoff. I'm like, you guys do know Fox has the game. They put their biggest game at 11 our time. So just chill out.
The highest rated game last year, I forget which game it was. It was one of their games at noon. I'm not so sure it was Ohio State, Michigan, whatever. But there's a reason. It sucks. I hate it too. It's gonna be 90 million degrees. That game should not be played at that time. No, nobody thinks it should. But you have to understand why Fox is doing it.
Yeah, but if Texas plays well in that game, doesn't even win. If they win, it's just there'll be probably questions on Monday about what's going on in Tuscaloosa,
right?
And Bryce Young and that group. But how big can that game be, you think, for Texas? Can that be one that said, okay, we play well? If we play well here, we know kind of what we are going forward through the conference.
Yeah, it's I'm hoping they don't get killed because because that might mess up their confidence, right?
Yeah,
you don't want that kind of thing to just completely put them in a funk and derail them. But here's the thing: when you go to the SEC, you're gonna have to deal with that, right? There are. Unless you're, there are some games. I went to Mizzou, so I see it all the time. All right, can you make sure that Georgia throttling you doesn't affect you next week? And for the Missouris and South Carolinas of the world, they kind of learned how to do that. You know what I mean? It's all right, we have to refocus. We've got Vanderbilt, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's going to be a super interesting test to see. All right, not even what happens in that game, but what happens after that. If you get 42-10. Do you let 42-10 carry into the next week and the next week and the next week? That's kind of my question. So yeah, everybody's gonna be watching that game. It's gonna do bonkers ratings. I'm pumped for it, but tempered optimism, I guess, for Texas fans.
Yeah, I was going to wonder what Sark can do against Saban. Yeah. Saban, hey, that shine came off of him last year. He had 2 losses against 2 former assistants, and
yeah, it did. That's true. That is true.
And Jimbo and Kirby, which this is an interesting week, anyways. I'm just going to throw Jimbo is the last guy at SEC Media Days, but that's a different topic, different time.
Right.
This conference quarterback, there's some good players here, but it doesn't feel like there's that superstar. I know Spencer Sanders there at Oklahoma State. He is the most tenured quarterback.
My guy, Spencer Sanders.
Yeah, I know he's had some issues with the turnovers. I mean, the turnover bug has got him. I'm very intrigued with Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. I think he can be where we talked about Texas. Baylor, Shapin's going to be
Blake
the new,
yeah.
Shapin's going to be the quarter. Some names I struggle with.
I
don't know why I want to put a sharp because he looked really sharp in the Big 12
championship game. The first half. Yes,
that's how you recover. That's how you recover when you make a mistake. A lot of interesting guys. Okay, so and then JT Daniels, if he can stay healthy, which is a big if with him. He's good when he's on the field, which is very rare. So when you look at what is the state of the quarterbacks in this conference?
So I love Spencer Sanders because I think he's like seriously talented, and I think that Notre Dame game was showing like what he can be. I voted Dylan Gabriel on my ballot for first team all Big 12. I think he's the better quarterback, like more complete product. I mean, this is a guy who's got like 3 more years of eligibility, but has put in like 2 complete, really awesome seasons at UCF. And also Jeff Lebby, he's got a really good relationship with him and he knows him well, like from their time at UCF together. So this is something that I think is going to work really well. Spencer Sanders, it's more on him this year. Like there is no Jalen Warren. There's no Tay Martin. It's going to be more of his team. And he's going to be the one creating things and also taking care of the football while doing so. So the challenges fall on him. I'm excited about that. West Virginia is crazy to me because there's so much, there's a lot of pressure on Neil Brown, I think. People are saying yes, no, but he is an offensive-minded coach who gave up play calling to Graham Harrell, and they're bringing in a guy like JT Daniels. And so, that's a proud program. And they want to be better than they are, really, like really bad. I mean, everybody wants to be better than they are, but like they've had some heydays and they're not near that. And so I think Neil Brown's a good coach and I'm really curious on that front. Blake Shapen, I mean, there's a reason why he's replacing Gary Bohan. He's just got more ability. He might also be one of those guys where like he has to come along slowly because I think they're going to want that offense to maybe carry him a bit more than it did last year. And so I think that's going to take time for a guy who hasn't been a starter before. So that's really interesting quarterback spot. Obviously, Quinn Ewers, you mentioned before. Adrian Martinez is really interesting. Tell you what, a team I want to look at, Texas Tech, they got 3 guys who are really good there. Baron Morton was one of the best recruits they've had. Tyler Shuck came from Oregon. Last year, he had the 7th best odds to be the number 1 pick going into the year, which is like nuts. And, people might be like, I don't even know who Tyler Shuck is. Well, that just tells you kind of intangibles he has. And then Donovan Smith, who was really impressive last year and has a little bit of, I'll just say a little bit of Patrick Mahomes in the game, Donovan Smith. And he had some really good games. So they got 3 really good quarterbacks. And also they have a star and offensive coordinator in Zach Kitley. So this league is not refined at the quarterback spot. It's just really interesting at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, and I really feel like when the season's over, we're going to have some superstars. As the season goes on, some superstars will rise up. So you mentioned some teams you think could win. I mentioned the 3 at the top, which I think everybody mentions, and you brought up Kansas State and Texas as potential contenders for the Big 12. Who do you think wins this conference this year?
So I picked Oklahoma. I'm a traitor to the league. I picked OU in Texas in the championship game. So it's like as much as but here's the thing is my whole point is if like a catastrophic offseason for OU is losing Lincoln Riley and you replace him with Brent Venables, who's considered one of the best coordinators, probably the best coordinator that was out there. And then you bring in Jeff Lebby. He brings in, the best coordinator, brought in maybe the other best coordinator of college football last year. And they bring in a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel. Like, you're probably going to be okay. And also, with what I'm hearing, like they're practicing stuff they didn't do before. They lost a lot on defense last year, but that defense wasn't impressive a whole lot. Like they didn't tackle very well. Mm-hmm. And I can't think that we're going to see a Brent Venables defense like a year or 2 from now. It's like, well, you know what? Brent's defense can't tackle. Like that's not going to happen. Like at the bare minimum, they're going to do things like that. Now the offensive line, a little bit down last year. Bill Beambo will see, what happens there. But like that group's probably going to come around, and I'm really curious to see what they look like this year. Maybe not as much talent on offense as normal, but they've got a really good leader, a guy people believe in. So the offensive line's at, and they've got some weapons. So I'm curious, but I think they're going to be in fine shape. So OU and then Texas, I'll buy it this year. It's everybody says do it every single year, but I'm like, this is a different level of talent, and this league's kind of down this year. So I think Texas takes advantage of that.
Well, the Big 12 fans may not appreciate that pick,
They,
but any
they
SEC
don't.
fans will love it.
Yeah.
Will love it.
There
So,
you go.
anyways, so it's going to be interesting year to Big 12. I'm going to be intrigued how it goes because I feel like there's not a head and shoulders favorite, so it should be
Mm.
a fun conference to keep up with this college football season. And Josh, this also has been fun having you on the show talking all things Big 12 football. If the listeners or viewers wanted to follow you online, where can they find you and where can they listen to Locked On Big 12?
Yeah, you guys can find the show wherever you guys get your podcasts, and you can find us on YouTube as well. Subscribe, leave comments, your hate, your love. We'll take it all, and we'll turn it into content.
All right, there you go. There you go. Well, anyways, Josh, I appreciate the time, and I look forward to doing it again sometime down the road.
Enjoy.